how's it going, everybody? For today's video, we're going to be doing the top 10 starting pitchers, but real briefly, we're also going to be hitting over the top 10 relief pitchers. Gut Fox, I know our lists do, at least at the moment, look a little bit different. I know mine, for a specific reason, we'll break it down a little bit more later. But man, looking over the relief pitchers that we're going to touch on real quick, you said there wasn't that much of a difference. I beg to differ.
Well, okay, we're off by one guy at the top. So, you know, you also play on a higher difficulty, okay? Because, like, me, my 84-year-old reflexes, we struggle a little bit above All-Star. Hall of Fame, I like. Legend, I watch you play Legend, and I'm like, how is this even possible? How is he seeing these? How are these, like how do you hit a sinker on Legend? You tell me that right now.
The kids will call it tempoing. It's the pitcher will have a different leg kick, or to me, what I pick up on when they say the leg kick, I've never noticed that. What I've noticed from a pitcher, that when they throw the ball, it's not necessarily to say the ball jumps, right? Because it's obviously going to be faster on a fastball, but it's like the way the arm is going to come through, or like right as the ball is released, right? There's a very different look as opposed to a hump on a curveball, or a slider is going to instantly come out a tad bit slower but start breaking away. So you could basically get a good look at something right as it's occurring, as opposed to real life, right, where you have to be able to try and read the spin completely. You need to be able to react off of that.
So, like, I don't understand either. Well, I'm sure you do a lot better job on your tip website. Where can I see that at?
MaddenTurf.com. It'll also be in the description box down below.
Yeah, I don't know. I watch your gameplay. I'm like, I don't know how he does it. Anyways, because you play at a high difficulty, let's talk about Devin Williams. Why is he your #1 reliever?
Okay, so in this, I was really debating putting him #1 because he's either going to be he's either going to be #1 or number 10. It depends who you're playing, right? He's that good or that bad. So if I'm playing somebody on the higher difficulties, a screwball is probably the nastiest pitch. Now, playing on Legend, you want to make sure you throw that screwball not in a slam spot. Obviously, you'd want to do the same on the lower difficulties as well, but the PCIs are much bigger, so right, it's harder to miss barrels with it as opposed to Legend, with the PCI being a lot smaller. As long as I don't throw in a slam spot and the way it moves, it's just a hard-ass pitch to square up. Some people will. I tend to square it up really well, just because I just know that's all I'm hunting. If you throw a cutter or a fastball before 2 strikes, feel free. I'm just going to stare at it. That's not the pitch I want. I know what you want to throw. That's the whole point. He's out there. If you start throwing cutters and fastballs, he's going to get lit up. So I just cheated. That's the only pitch I'll look for.
I mean, that's kind of what you got to do with those higher difficulties, right? You got to just look for one pitch and execute when you get that one pitch, right?
To a certain degree. I mean, having a plate approach, you know, depending who I'm facing as well and the pitcher that they have on the mound, I may look to go to right center, or just tell myself, like, if something's in, especially hard, I'm gonna take it. You know, if I strike out from here, you know, every now and then on that pitch, that's perfectly fine, because I won't get fooled by a slider, a cutter, a changeup, any of those things away, where that's typically what people want to throw because they're just so afraid to throw you a fastball in the first place.
Especially someone like you who can easily handle fastballs, and I've seen you. I like still turning on fastballs. Legends is crazy, but like, so it's interesting about Devin Williams. Like, okay, in previous years, I feel like you could pitch to contact. I feel like with the wildness of pitchers this year, like you talk about slam spots, and it's so important when you're thinking about pitching. Like, you want to put, like, you know, a fastball above a slam spot, down, up. But, like, I feel like with how wild it is in the par distances, and it always kind of, like, you know, screws you over a little bit, frequently pitching a contact just means you're going to pitch it and it's going to go, like, the worst spot, and they don't have to move the PCI, and they just center swing and hit a home run. So it's like, it's the hardest year, in my opinion, that I've seen in a long time to pitch to contact. Do you feel the same way? Maybe not at Legend, but at lower difficulties.
No, I don't feel the same way because I use pure analog. If you get good,
not that good.
If you get good at pure analog, go ahead and watch the videos where I've played other people, where I'm at that point I'm using pure analog, whether it's streams or whatever. As long as you hit that line in the hoop, it goes exactly where you put it. So if I wanted to make sure, like, hey, I want this ball only a centimeter off the player, I want this ball not in a slam spot, but I want it close so that they'll, you know, get underneath it and it's a routine fly, I can go back to controlling that again on pure analog. Is it annoying to try and hit the line in the hoop? It is, but that's what I said. If you get good at it, and every day I'm getting better and better with it, I understand, where certain pitches will miss, and just like with pinpoint, right? I mean, you can't just throw a changeup up and in, at least this year, and expect it to go directly where you set it to be. But again, with pure analog, I can actually know, well, if I put a splitter instead of, I'll call it middle in, but slightly higher, if I get a perfect release, oddly enough, it ends up where I want, which is slightly lower. So the way it misses, as opposed to pinpoint, where it's just completely random, even if you get a perfect on pinpoint, it's just going to land somewhere in the par region, and sometimes still not at all land there. I can control where I'm going to miss, and also if I do miss the line in the hoop, I know exactly where that ball's going in the first place anyways, right? That's the beauty of it.
You and pure analog need to go to room. I literally watched you, like, I'm talking like BR. I remember you saying pure analog's not good during BR because you can't, like, you don't know the distances and the timings and stuff.
Well, because of the new pitchers. I've never used those cards. I'm not a BR player, so I'm not familiar with them, as opposed to my ranked seasons team where I've used them enough. I just need to use you probably once or twice to understand the timing of the line where I would need to go back up from the line.
So you like,
that makes sense.
Okay, I get you. Yeah, I see it.
Right. If I go into BR and I'm using all these weird cards, because they're never really typically cards that you're going to use in a ranked lineup. It's like again, even pinpoint has a whole bunch of different timings for it. But I will say that's easier.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know. The thing is, like, I play more BR than I do ranked. Because, like, here's the thing about ranked. I hate how I can't play ranked very long without having and being, like, forced to play on legend or sandbag it and just, like, lose games purposely to stay in lower difficulties. Then it feels like I'm, just bullying up on people on lower difficulties. I hate that aspect of ranked. Otherwise, I'd play it more because I think legend is just, it's not fun. Like, you really have to be locked in. It's crazy. Do you enjoy yourself playing on legend?
Yes. But that's just because I know that's where all the crackhead demons are playing. That's literally all it is. I want the competition. I want to play the best, and I know that's where they're at. That being said, though, I still am a big believer in that they should give you an incentive, right? Because I think a vast majority, if not, 90-ish% of the base quits before World Series, or they make World Series and just go, I'm done, because they don't want to play. And that's why I'm like, well, if you guys gave an incentive, right? If you guys made it at 1,000 rating as opposed to a stupid ass emblem, I'm still mad about that, by the way. The certain words that they use right as they drop that on us, we listen to the community. I still remember it just like it was yesterday. It's PTSD. They listened to us and gave us a fucking emblem. That's what they did. Good call. That's what everyone wanted for hitting 1,000. When you can't even get people, like how you said, they hit legend, they're like, yeah, nope, done. Don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's just not fun. It's literally the worst part about this game is legend difficulty. Well, not maybe literally. The literally is the worst. Is the freeze-offs, but yeah. It's just not fun to play on for me. And obviously, I can try and get good. I can get good sleep, drink caffeine, and then get locked in and sit an inch from the monitor and go crazy. But I don't want to. I just want to baseball. It feels like a chill time, a good time, and that's why I abhor ranked seasons for the way it's set up, because it forces me into legend eventually. And I don't know. That's all I gotta say about that. Let's go back to these relievers. Okay, one of your biggest things this year is control, and Gregory Soto made your list. He didn't make mine. It's one of the reasons why I knocked Josh Hader a little bit down on my list too, is because of the control problems on these cards. 67 walk per 9 with Soto. His circle change got 25 control. 25 pitch breaks. He's got decent on the slider, not much there. But why is Soto so high on your list?
Because lefties are necessary. That's why even once we get to my starter list, some lefties that I'll tell you, once there's enough lefties in the game, say there's a Randy Johnson or some others, these cards don't become valuable at all, and they instantly fall off the list. But the reason why they're probably in the middle of my list is because everyone, at least on the higher difficulties, the way the meta's set up there is all lefties and switch hitters. They're not using righties.
Really?
So, yeah. So even though on the cover of it all, a right-handed hitter like a Derek Jeter or some others are much more obvious choices. They're still going to Francisco Lindor at short. They're still doing Ketel Marte, even though I won't do it. I'll just use what I look at as the best card. But I understand that the meta is, well, there's no good lefties that people can use against you. So you might as well just go lefty and switch hitter and own the advantage. So that's why to me, well, so for Gregory, Hater's just too basic. Way too basic. A four-seam slider, changeup, and everyone at least again on legend difficulty, past, I would even say past 700, have seen Hater for the last 3 years. Just because the amount that someone has seen him makes him now not that good. Everyone's been trained, I'll call it, against a Hater.
But I feel like Hater last year maybe wasn't as good because he comes in a similar slot as Randy. We don't see Randy once every 5 games this year. Obviously we see Randy's off child, which is like caps and stuff, but those need to go out of the games. I think we can agree on that.
Yep.
But, the thing about, he's got a 2-seamer, good control, good break on it too. You don't think the 2-seamer kind of plays similar to a sinker? I think a 2-seamer is. It's pretty nice right there. An outlier 2-seamer, do you feel it's just bad? I know how much Brev, and the reason we're not doing this Brev anymore is because he said he's too good for us. He works for SDS now. But for those wondering where he was, yeah, he just can't be associated with us anymore. He said that. Nah, he's cool, but yeah, he's got another job. Anyways, what do you think about the 2-seamer here on Hater? Why don't you? I think it's really it's the best 2-seamer in the game. Why don't you value that?
Again, the best way I can answer is just ever since Hater's been in the game, I haven't even faced him once.
Really?
There's no point. Everyone knows, I know for myself anyways, when I'm at the plate, if you bring in Hater, I go, ooh, I'm getting 3 runs before you even have the chance to take him out.
Really?
I'm going to hit him hard. Now, there could be lineouts and stuff. Sure, that's always a possibility. But I'm going to hit him hard. Lefty-lefty, righty-lefty. It doesn't matter. I've seen him enough. There's not... And again, only with a fastball, slider, changeup. There's only so much you can do. So maybe the first AB, if you do something really weird, throwing changeups inside or high and in, but after that, it becomes very basic, right? Fastballs can go anywhere in the zone, and a slider is going to typically be away to a lefty and into a righty. And then I know, at least with a righty, you're going to go, again, 2 seams can end up anywhere. Your changeup's only going to typically go away to a righty, and the slider is going to be what you try and fool me after throwing a fastball inside. Yeah, those are your 3 pitches.
Do you think the slider's too slow on Hater?
If he had a cutter, no, I would love the speed differential, but I think if you're to have one slider, you'd want it to be a power slider. Sure, that's what made Randy Johnson so good. Yeah, he threw 102, but his slider was still coming at you at 93, 94. It's a cutter with insane movement.
Yeah, the slurve too. I could see you there. Maybe that's why Hater's not that good. Interesting, because I think Hater and his angle of his arm is unique, and we don't really have anybody like that this year from the left side that you see a lot. So I'm that's kind of interesting to say that you say you've already seen Hater a lot, but you haven't seen him really yet this year yet. So
well, it's just because everyone shares the same idea. At least again at we'll call it the top 200 area where those are the people I'm always playing. Everyone knows that we've seen him enough. And if you make me see him again, that's your fault. Even if I don't see him for the rest of this year, he's going to get lit up.
You talk so much shit about Hater, but you put Diego Castillo at your number 7 spot, and he's only got slider, sinker, 4-seam.
The sinker, number 1, and there's a differential on the 4-seam and sinker, speed-wise. So I enjoy that. Even though they're outlier too, there still is. His 4-seam usually will hit 100. His sinker will be 95 to 98. So even though it won't show it, there's still a difference. But realistically, the main reason, I don't know if you've noticed it yet or not, I have talked about it. The sliders, now again, lefty-lefty, it's the same concept, but the slider on Legend makes your PCI the size of, if you're lucky, an ant dick. So you could just sit there. If I go, oh, you got two, and people will do it to me. So I just sit slider. That's the pitch I want at that point. Like I know you're gonna throw it. That's the point of bringing in somebody like Diego. But if you throw me a sinker or four seam, the PCI we'll call it is the normal size of what it should be. You throw me a slider, that PCI shrinks to a third of what it was.
Okay.
And that's supposedly intended.
Yeah, I know the SDS wants that. You said that the 4 pitches that I think you've said this about is slider, slurve, splitter, and then you think
Fork ball. Yeah, those would be the 4 that should be doing it. I can confirm a slider. I can confirm a splitter. A splitter doesn't seem to do it as bad, but it can. But the most devastating one is it's the slider. That makes it much smaller than anything else.
Huh. It's interesting that they've done that to buff sliders. It feels like sliders are easier seen this year. Do you feel that way? It's easier to see it out of the hand. It's just now harder to make contact with it.
It depends. There's definitely certain cards. Josh Hader for sure would be one of those that is very easy to read out of the hand. However, Castillo, even though I'm expecting it, I don't read him that well. Huh. Even though I'm sitting there looking slider, I don't see it that well. He's pretty deceptive.
Yeah, maybe you just haven't seen him enough to you don't got the reps on him like you do with Big Hater. All right, let's go into our top 10 starters then. We've talked a lot about relievers. I'll let you lead it off. Who's your number 10 starter in the game right now?
Number 10 starter is going to be Grayson Rodriguez, and the reason why he maybe is that low is just because he's going to be, and it would be a perfect segue into my notable mentions right before that. He's going to be very similar to Pedro Martinez. Okay. He's got the outlier 4 seam. He's got the cutter, the slider. Yes, Pedro's going to have a little bit more control and better hits per 9, Ks per 9, all that good stuff, right? He's a budget Pedro. Now, I still look at Pedro and go, the reason why he's a notable mention, I haven't used him. I don't know what to gauge off of him. I would imagine he's probably already, even right now, a number 5 in a rotation. It just doesn't have the meta pitches, right? He doesn't have the sinker. Yes, he's got the cutter and the slider, sure. But if you take away, say, his cutter and gave him a sinker, I would put Pedro number 2, maybe even number 1.
Why don't you like the cutter?
It doesn't shrink the PCI. I'm going to throw so again, to the lefties, I like the cutter. But, for against a righty, I'm just going to spam the slider. What if I know I'm going to shrink your PCI, and that's what all people do to me as well? I'm going to keep throwing it until you show me you can hit it. Because you have to have damn good PCI placement on Legend against the slider. Yeah. So I'm not going to throw the cutter to a righty. I'll throw it to a lefty.
The reason why I love the cutter is that it plays so well off the fastball that, like, righty, throwing the cutter to the outer side of the plate gets a lot of rollovers. It's one of my main out pitches with guys with cutters. Just throw it. Like, it's almost become meta right now. Righty, throw the cutter away. And, people that look to pull it, the fastball in, it's just going to roll it over and get a ground ball, don't play.
Yeah, I mean, it has its spot. But, again, I'm going to get people to hit much weaker contact more often than not with a slider on Legend. And so I'm like, I don't know how much it plays on Hall of Fame. Probably I would be very willing to bet it doesn't matter on All-Star. But Hall of Fame, maybe it still plays to the same degree, right? Because on All-Star, the reason why it won't matter as much, your PCI is already massive, so shrinking it isn't that ginormous. But on Legend, where the PCI is already small,
doesn't matter. Cold water, no effect on us. We got plenty to spare. So you didn't rate. I rated Pedro in mine, even though I don't have him, just because I respect game recognized game. There's a couple that I've that didn't have that I've rated in mine too. I could see your points though, right? Like with the lack of sync, I think this is it weird, dude. Like, how long has a sinker been the meta pitch in this game?
Since I want to say it was 19. Where to be fair, I think we're headed into the same territory as 19. 19 was the year of Bruce Sutter, or again, I want to say it was 19. It was either 18 or 19, but I think it was 19. But that was the year of Bruce Sutter, who, again, it was splitters and sliders, and that's why I'm going, oddly enough, it shrinks your PCI. It seems like we're headed towards that same category. I don't know if we do. Not at the moment,
Well,
but he'll be nasty.
doesn't like Lee Smith? He's got a cutter forkball, so forkball slider, and he doesn't have outliers. But at 99 mile per hour, you had Lee Smith pretty low on your reliever list though. Even though he's got the 2 shrinkage, why didn't you like Lee? Like I love Lee Smith's forkball. Like I've tried to hit against it. It literally just like it looks like a fastball, then it falls off the table, and I look like an idiot. And I make people look like idiots with the forkball. Why don't you like Lee Smith more?
Well, if his hits per nine was at least 110, then that changes pretty much everything. But only 98. Yeah, but Hoffman, if he also gets a captain boost, that's why at 10, that's why I said he would be much higher if it was for captain boost. Yeah. But Lee Smith will never get affected by it because he's not a reliever. But Lee Smith as well, 98 hits per nine. I still think he's good. I still use him out of my pen. He is not my first go-to guy. He's usually kind of who, if I'm facing somebody who I want to save my best bullpen pieces, that's who's going out. If he's the only one left, then he's the only one left. Yeah. But it's just the hits per nine. That's the big issue.
So sexy. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, hits per nine kind of damn
Mm.
him. All right. Number 10 pitcher starter for me. I wanted to give like some respect, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. And I hate how they like kind of screw him every year. Jacob DeGrom, right? Because live series cards, and I kind of want to talk to you and get your opinion on this. I really haven't talked to you much this year. There's not a whole lot of usable live series cards, okay? DeGrom, he's got good velocity, outlier, slider, circle, curveball. 2-seamer you're not probably going to use a lot. Good control. Why do they kind of, screw him on pitch break overall? And did you like what they've done as far as live series and like the other big cards this year? Like, what are your thoughts on overall content?
Overall content, it's been plenty. There's been a lot happening. We'll see how long this continues for. Because last year it ended pretty quick. That being said, though, live series cards, I can't remember the last time that they were ever really relevant, even towards the start of launch. This year, for sure, worse than any other year. But to be fair, after a couple weeks to a month tops, live series already fall out of the rotation. Other than a live series Mike Trout, that's kind of it.
Isn't that right now would be when live series normally just rotates out, is what you're saying in previous years. I feel like that was always my favorite part. Like I used to love using like Juan Soto, making him look like an idiot in the outfield, but man, he hit nukes. But now like everybody's Juan Soto, and it kind of sucks. I don't know. What do you feel about that? Do you not care?
It's not that I don't care. It's just the only way that they can make this all work is that, and to be fair, they've been doing it so far, is the supercharged. How many supercharges are they going to give? How often are they going to do it? How long is this going to happen?
They don't really work that good for pitchers because they don't increase like
velocity. Yeah. It's only the fix for position players. And to be fair, it at least makes cards that I would have never used ever. I use them. All right, Max Muncy would never, ever sniff my lineup. But when he's supercharged, hell yeah. Even to a Taylor Wells, I forget his name, but switch hitter from the Rays, would have never used him, but he was supercharged. So I at least like the supercharging, and it makes, cards very valuable then. But that's really all you can do for live series. That's all you got.
So yeah, I put DeGrom there because I wanted to talk about live series. I'm not sure he would be my number 10, but like, what do you think about DeGrom? Would you enter a game with DeGrom right now?
Hell no.
He's got good control, man. Hits per 9, K per 9 in the mid 90s.
As you said, the way
sexy slider.
The way that they combat live series cards not going too high is they always really screw over some stat. So for live series hitters, it was fielding. Right, Byron Buxton only like a 63 fielder or something. Where it's like, huh? Right. Yeah. Where then he'll get a 99, and it's like, oh yeah, he's max fielding, reaction, everything. So it's like, okay, well that just doesn't seem to make all that much sense. So that was their way of not letting him get too high in overall. And the same with pitchers, they affected it with break for live series cards. So that's why I'm like, they also made live series cards not that great. That I would say that's the one downside to supercharged is, again, yeah, Max Muncy's gonna have sweet hitting stats, but holy shit, please don't hit it to him. Yeah, that's just the problem.
Yeah. But you got to pitch to one side of the plate so that way they don't hit it his way, right? If you put him at like second base, just pitch to, to the left side of the plate so they pull it or push it the other way.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go. Number 9 pitcher for you.
Number 9 for me is gonna be the 99 Max Scherzer.
Really?
Only used him once. It's still Mad Max. He's a little funky, nothing crazy, but again, the slurve. I think we touched on it, but just to clarify, I know somebody who's in the list later, but Dustin May, his slurve shrinks to PCI.
Okay.
So,
Everybody's with Dustin May.
Yeah. So Max Scherzer, his slurve will do that. He's got a cutter, slider, circle change, four seam, right? Yeah, no outlier. His hits per 9 are relatively low, but good control. That's why I have him at number 9.
Yeah, I was looking at Max. I'm like, maybe it's because I play mostly on lower difficulties. I haven't hit legend yet. And for good reason. I'm trying to like spread it out, of course. But like, I don't feel like 96. It really wets the whistle here for me. And like, as you can get a lot of people out, even at All Star, with outlier, and him not having it. Slider, circle, slurve. I like the differential between the slider and the slurve, but he just, even though I haven't used him, he just didn't look like he's that attractive. It doesn't look like he's that effective for me. I'm surprised that you found him. You said you only used him once, but I'm surprised you found him so effective.
Well, again, I think pitching in general right now isn't that effective. So, I mean, again, he's a 99, but that's why he's the 9. I would not use him. In my top 5 rotation. That's why he's in the 9 spot. This isn't somebody I'm looking at to go, oh, this is who I want in my starting 5. This is somebody who I go, budget option. You maybe like the Nationals or the Mets or something, right? So you want Max on your team. Okay, he's viable, but he's just not, again, a top 5 pitcher. He's just not.
Yeah. All right, my number 9 is Yu Darvish. I think you like him. Quite a bit, right?
I won't spoil it, but
okay, don't spoil it.
Yeah.
So why I like this is 104 hits per 9. Is the max hits per 9 for a starter like 110 this year right now?
Bob Feller seems to be in that spot. Roki, yes. Even Sevy is. Vita slightly above it. Bob Gibson at parallel 4, slightly above it. Yeah, it seems to be the 110 spot is the sweet spot for the moment.
He was pretty close, 6 short of it. Really good walks per 9. He's got I don't know. I've always just felt like Yu has a decent amount of movement on the pitches that really, and they play off each other pretty well. So I've always been a bigger fan of Yu Darvish cards than maybe the general consensus, but it feels like maybe I'm behind on the Yu Darvish love right now.
I would say only slightly.
Okay, because I haven't used this card. I'm just looking at it and I know how Yu's played in the past. So number 9 for me. Okay, we'll wait till your number and your Yu before we get more into it, so we don't spoil too much.
All right, great news. At number 8, I have Yu Darvish. So, so I said only slightly. But
I thought he was gonna be higher. I don't know why I thought you. We had the conversation before, like a while ago. You said Yu was one of your favorite pitchers this year.
Yeah, that was like what 2 weeks ago. Time moves. There's been plenty of other pitchers to come out. So
time marches on, Fox. That's true. I'm sorry.
But again, as a budget option, Yu Darvish is probably the best budget option, in my opinion. And budget in this case is about 50-60K. It's just again, keep in mind I have him parallel 4, but 117 stamina, so he could go long and hard. Wink, wink. 108 hits per 9, 100 Ks per 9. Not elite, but again, he's at least in the range of what seems to be pretty normal with starters. Maybe slightly below it. 115 balls per 9, 96 control. You can locate with him whether it's on pure analog or even pinpoint. I think on pinpoint he'll be just fine. He's got the 5 pitches. I wish the splitter was slower. The splitter's not that great of a pitch. But yeah, it's kind of it. Like if he had a slower splitter and maybe a notch or two higher on the four seam as opposed to a sinker, yeah, he would probably have made the top 5. But those two slight things change it.
Yeah, it's crazy how much just like little changes matter so much on these cards to take them from a like good to like excellent and top tier of the meta. But you know, that's kind of what we're looking at here when we look at like the differences between a lot of them. It's just very slight on so many of these cards. So yeah, I guess a little bit different than you, but very similar thoughts as of now on the U stuff. All right, my number 8. I don't know if you like him or not. I've never asked you about this guy in my life.
Oh,
Walter Johnson. I love his funky delivery. I really do.
you also like sitting there for an hour, well, before he throws a pitch.
It's called mental games, Gunsky.
Yeah, you would win. I would be swinging. You put it near the zone. I'm over it. Like good.
or yeah, gets so bad. I just walk the first batter of every inning just to get into the stretch. I don't know. There's something about the four seam and then the sinker being only the 95 sinker versus the outlier fastball. The only thing, you know, obviously he doesn't have the slider, but enough with a changeup and the curveball to throw it off. And he does get quite a bit of outs. Now I haven't used this card this year, but I used this card last year quite a bit, and he played well for me. I mean, I think there was one outing, if I recall, where the guy felt like he was kind of on to Walter. But like the fact that like the four seam sets up the sinker so well, it just seems to work out for me in the way he pitches, and people, you don't see him a lot, and people just get kind of messed up by the weird old school sidearm, but it looks like he's throwing his arm off his body every single pitch type of windup. What are your thoughts on Walter?
He definitely didn't make my list. So I'll just start it there. But again, with the meta pitches being a slider, a splitter, a slurve, because a curveball won't shrink the PCI, oddly enough. He doesn't have anything that I would want. His hits per 9 aren't that great. I'm sure he controls his pitches really well, is what it looks like. But I just know if I bring him against top players, he's not surviving even the first inning. He's going to get hit very hard. But again, lower difficulties I could see because, again, if the PCI is already big, you don't have to worry about some of these things that I'm mentioning about shrinking a PCI even more, where, again, you're now really hunting that speed differential, right? The four seam, the sinker, the changeup. You can use those three. Those are 3 pitches that should somewhat look the same out of the hand, but give you 3 different movements and speeds. But yeah, not having a slider definitely kills them. A 5th pitch, anyways.
I really do think that's a lot of pitching at lower difficulties. It's keeping the ball on the edges of the plate. Don't ever go towards the middle third. Never high, low, middle zone. Never pitch a single pitch there. So one of the edges and speed differentials, and then obviously people do swing out of the zone quite a bit on lower difficulties. So the changeup low really gets them, and the fastball can go anywhere in the zone. So, that's why I like Walter. Is those reasons? Even though I feel like the curveball is the worst pitch in the game. What do you think?
They made it better. The curveball has a sharper break. And again, I want to emphasize the sharper. It doesn't mean it's super sharp, but it's gotten better. But is a curveball as good as a slurve? No. And it's still, even with on analog, it still wants to hang, by the way.
It does.
Yeah.
What's broken with the curveball that it always wants to get in the zone at the worst possible spot, right in slam region too?
Yeah, I don't know. So even with curveballs, I emphasize really spiking in the dirt. I throw it much lower than I would ever imagine somebody will swing at, and quite a few times they'll end up where I would want it. So it's just going even lower than you would think.
Yeah, and they oftentimes get fouled off too.
Yeah,
right, number 7 for you.
Bob Feller, Booby Feller. I have him here just because his control's a nightmare. It's really it. I mean, he's got the good hits and Ks per 9, great pitches. The 12-6 I like more than a regular curveball, but not as much as a slurve, right? It's kind of the in-between of the two. Yeah, in a perfect world, the slider is a power slider at 92 to 95. And then the sinker, the same way we're talking about with some of the other guys, that the four seam, he has outlier on, if I'm not mistaken. He does. And his sinker, it does not. So it gives you really good speed differentials. But the control, even on analog, is problematic. At least for sure with his changeup. And that's the pitch I want to throw a lot. If I throw his four seam or sinker, I can pretty much dot that over and over again on analog. His changeup and slider, not so much. So that's why I have him at 7.
I love Feller a lot more than you do, but I've definitely recognized the low walks per 9 and the low control on him have sometimes frustrated me. So I agree. I think you're right, maybe on the slider velocity, but basically the best pitches potentially in the game for any card right now. Sans maybe a couple, but yeah, I love Bob Feller. I'll say that. I got him later on my list. All right, next up for me, we kind of already talked about him. Next up for me on my list is number 7 is Grayson Rodriguez. I do love, like I said, the outlier. I'm not gonna take too long on Grayson and the speed differentials on a lot of his pitches. So that's why he's up there for me. Slider, curve, circle, cutter. I just the cutter for me, I feel like it's right there with the sinker, and I feel like a lot of people have kind of caught on to sinkers a little bit more. But the rollover on the cutter on all-star difficulty is one of my main out pitches, or getting people, because like whenever you throw a cutter inside, if you ever catch the zone with a cutter, you're basically dead. You've got him a home run. Cutter, like you got to get him to not swing, aka like backdoor cutter, or you got to put it off the plate. But like inside to a lefty, it's like an auto foul ball. People are always ahead of it. The different a 10 mile per hour difference is like a horizontal. It's a horizontal changeup, which I absolutely adore. So that's why I like Grayson Rodriguez for me, and he's pretty well controlled.
Well, okay, I was gonna say that would have been my question. Do you feel like you control him well or no?
I feel like I have. Have you not controlled Grayson well?
Like I said, the same way with Pedro, I haven't really given him his fair due. So that's why I was like, well, I'll put him at 10 because in theory, I can see why he should be solid. I don't think top 5 rotation solid, which is why I never really gave him that run. But I'm like, well, if he was controlling well, right, he gives me a circle change, a slider, the cutter, and the four seam with outlier. I don't know if he's funky or not. That would probably play the biggest role out of him.
Not too funky.
So, yeah. But probably not top 5. For you, it seems like just outside of it. For me, for the pitchers that I want and the reasons why that are in the top 5, he just doesn't have it.
All right, give me your number 6. Your first runner up for your top 5.
All right, and it's because of what we were talking about earlier. Number 6, even though, so again, once there's lefty pitchers that are more relevant, that at least at the super high difficulties where people are running mainly lefty and switch hitter lineups, they'll have maybe 1, max 2 righties is typically what I see. My number 6 is Mad Bum. Now, do I think he deserves to even be in the top 10? No, but because of the crap that I always run into, I at least use him as bait. So I'll bring him out, force people to either hit lefty against him, which they don't seem to do all that well, or they can start bringing in, righties off the bench, in which case then I go to Shohei Ohtani or somebody else, right? Just a different righty, and they can have fun with that now that they're back into what I'll call a normal lineup, a square one.
Now, that would be a great strategy, but how do you maintain that with the starter energy drain in the game right now?
It just depends, right? I mean, if I'm going to go for... I typically will do that when I have at least 2 starters to be able to do it. If Mad Bum's in, if he's my only guy with super high stamina, then it just is what it is. And that's the risk I take. But I need at least 1 lefty in my rotation. Even if he's not that great, there needs to be 1 to either make people have to force out of that, all those lefties. And yeah, they still have the advantage again, with the switch hitters. But I at least take away where if I brought out a righty, even if I'm very comfortable with that righty, they have the advantage. We'll call it 8 out of 9 ABs. I want to take that away.
Yeah, I've definitely run into those same lineups, all lefties and switches, and
Mm.
it's gotten to a point where I've just like I'm like, should I just do like an opener? Like, what about
Oh, I always use an opener, by the way. Always.
you?
Yeah. Because again, at the super high difficulties, the reason why I go to an opener may be different from others. Last year there was multiple reasons. Now this year it's literally only one reason. Um, I get to use whoever I want. So say I at least have two pitchers I could pick from. Typically, it's going to be somebody who's not that great. It's going to be probably my fourth or fifth starter and my number one or two. Right. That's usually the gap that I run. Um, so if I'm facing somebody that I go, oh, like I know this person, they hit really well. I want to give you at least my best available starter. That's then who I go to. But if I'm playing somebody who I go, their stats don't look that great. I don't really know who they are. Then I'll go to my fourth or fifth. So it leaves the flexibility for me to use my good starters against the good and great players, and we'll call them not. It's not even say they're not so good, but people I definitely don't trust against the super crazy crackheads. I'll use them against people I just either see their stats and go, it doesn't really make sense to use somebody that good, or I don't really know you, and hopefully you prove me wrong. So.
Hey, how come? Have you used Fernando Valenzuela this year?
Lower difficulties, a literal god. People hated him. Legend, he gets lit up. And again, the reason why the difference between Devin and him, because I know where you're probably thinking, difference between Devin and him. If I'm not mistaken, Devin throws a harder screwball. That's step number one. Number two, the hits per nine, 125 as opposed to 95. And pitcher clutch being also 125 as opposed to, I don't know what Fernando's is, but it can't be that much higher. Could be lower than 95. So
Devin's screwball's 83. Fernando's is 81, so they're about the same.
all right. I mean, if they're about the same, it's really just about creating the PCI. Like I said, the screwball, as long as I don't throw in a slam spot, I'm pretty confident it's leading to an out on Legend.
Yeah, the difference is 30 hits per nine difference, so it's quite significant between the two of
Mm.
them. And then also throws harder on the four seam, and he's got a cutter too. But man, that circle screwball combo is insane.
Oh, yeah.
On Valenzuela.
Again, Fernando on the lower difficulties, I guess I would, technically have him as a notable mention. It's just I can't get away with that on on Legend. Even I feel like even people who make it to World Series and are continuing to play, they'll be glad you brought him out. But the people on the lower difficulties, no, they won't have fun because it's a very who else throws that, right? They haven't seen it enough. So there's no caps. Yeah, there's just no one that they can really go back in their own mental book and be like, this is how I would approach him. They're probably seeing him for the first time. No one uses him either. That's part of the reason what makes him good.
It is, yeah, because he was actually meta for a little bit last year, if I recall correctly. I actually saw him a few times, and I used him a few times, and I saw a lot of people complaining on the subreddit about him, like how insane he was, because nobody thought he was going to be that insane, and just the way the pitches break has just been so, like, wild for him. All right, number 6 for me, I'm going to go with, so this is my first runner-up, but he is in my rotation because I have, like, a different series going on, but Shohei Ohtani for his two-way value has been just kind of wonderful. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm assuming the 99.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, top Shohei.
Mm.
He he's Otani, man. He hits the ball far and he throws the ball hard. He's also got a cutter, which 10 mile per hour slower than his fastball. It's kind of like a horizontal changeup, like we've talked about. The splitter, the slider, and then the curveball, which we hate curveballs here, but I'm okay. You can bury him in the dirt. He's also got good hits per nine, Ks per nine, walks per nine. And
Clutch.
Of course, like we've seen, really good power and contact and speed, arm. He's a glitch. He's literally glitched. Actually, like SDS, I know knows about the glitch. Do you want to tell people about the glitch?
Yeah, I mean because SDS knows about it now. I mean, if you go with Shohei, and it could be any of them. It could be the 92. It could be the live series, or it could be the 99 in this case. It can't be the closer one. It has to be a starting version of Ohtani. But if you, after 3 batters decide, so part of the reason why it would benefit you to use an opener is
3 batters or 3 outs?
I mean, I've always done 3 outs if I've ever done it. But from what I've heard, it's only 3 batters. Basically, as long as you just bring him out of the pen. Right, that's really what it comes down to. As long as you didn't go to a starter, or I mean, in this case, you still can, as long as it's not Ohtani, right? You could go to whoever pitcher you want. Say it's now the 2nd inning, and then you want to warm up Ohtani. Even if you use him the game before, he's all of a sudden max energy all over again. So his stamina never drains if you bring him in from the bullpen.
The same thing in BR too. So
Mm-hmm.
BR picks, but you can't DH him.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't DH him if you're doing that.
Okay, so he's like he can pitch every single game for you in relief.
Yeah, he can literally go 7-8 innings, in ranked, or it can go in BR for 3. Because that's the thing that made me laugh. I have never even tried it in BR because I just don't play it. But people were telling me that you could literally, like, you know how if you bring in a starter or reliever, they're at a quarter energy in BR. Ohtani would be still a full bar. So you, instead of like, oh, well, he was a starter, so he's only still going to go like 18 pitches or whatever.
Yeah.
No, you can still go 80. Yeah, you can still go 80. So it's beyond broken, at least for BR. BR, if you get Ohtani, I know a lot of people have been choosing him for that reason.
He's great. All right, so what's your number 5?
But number 5, even though again same concept as Mad Bum, once there's better lefties, he won't be here. But for now, you need at least one, and he's probably the best lefty currently in the game, Vita Blue. Going to control him well, gives you the best hits per 9, gives you really good stamina. He does have good break. His 2-seam is going to be slower than the 4-seam, so I do like it because of that. His changeup is really slow. Again, perfect world. He has a power slider, but you can still play with it. And the curveball 82, it's a little bit more sharper than most. But yeah, I'm never throwing that for a strike. No way in hell. But very good, for a lefty right now.
Use this Vita this year. I've used previous years' Vitas, and they've been good. He didn't make my top 10 because I wasn't really thinking about the need for lefties as much as I maybe should have. But yeah, this is a good choice. No outlier on him, surprisingly enough, on this card. Last year, I believe his second card did have outlier, if memory serves correct. But yeah, just the changeup slider, and God, yeah, the curveballs. I don't know. I wish they were slightly better, but that's the name of the game. I got nothing else to say about Vita. I think you said it well. My number 5 is somebody we talked about in your
Notables.
I put Pedro right here at number 5, and again another card I don't have unlocked because I would never take him over
Baber Chipper. That's why I don't think anyone well, yeah, there's definitely 1 or 2 people that I know who have him, but that's for content purposes. They didn't do it because they're like, oh, he's gonna be sick. No one did it for that reason.
Yeah, either you're a big Red Sox fan or content reasons is why you take him. So he's got really cool looking pitches, really cool looking attributes, and that's all I gotta say. If I did have him, he would be in my starting rotation.
Yeah, I would give him a shot too. But realistically, what does he look like? It's a glorified Grayson Rodriguez. And glorified, not by that much. After seeing his hits per 9, I thought his hits per 9 were like 111. Seeing him at 106. He'll have more control after that. It's not much different.
Yeah. But it's Pedro. He's fun. All right, you're number 4.
Number 4 is going to be Boob Gibson.
Nice.
For Bob, I just feel like because factoring in, and when we get to your hitting too, there's a lot of price points that get factored in for me. Right, he's 28K, and I'm sure anyone who's played the game for even 10 minutes at this point has him for free. So that gets factored in. But outlier 4-seam, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna double check that. Yep, outlier on the 4-seam. Sinker at 95, has one of the harder sliders, right, at 90. And a changeup at 86, a curveball at 80. I almost never use a curveball, but every now and then just as a show me pitch. A parallel 4, 112 hits per 9. But I think, again, as a lot of people still are overlooking clutch, I think they overlook pitcher clutch. He has it at 125. So when runners are on second and third, he creates the smallest PCI again. Again, I think I would put him higher in my list if if people that I were playing had more righties in their lineup. But because I always see lefties and switch hitters, I mean, this is kind of what we got. He's in fourth.
In my opinion, this is like almost the perfect pitcher card.
Yeah, which his changeup had more control. His changeup sometimes pretty brutal. Everything else pretty easy to do.
Yeah, his changeup's like the real bad control pitch that he has. But otherwise, like if I was creating a guy, like the only thing I'd change would maybe be the curveball to like a screwball, right? This is like essentially the perfect thing as like a creative player. So Bob Gibson is higher for me than yours, but oh my gosh, is he effective in this game? And that's what I gotta say about that. Like you gotta get yourself a Bob Gibson because he makes people look foolish. But there's some people that can't be made foolish because they're insanely good at the game. But he's about as good as they come at doing that. My number 4 is Dustin May. I the thing about Dustin May, I feel like he's gonna slowly get a little bit less effective because Dustin May's been kind of injured the last few years. We haven't seen him that often. He hasn't gotten big cards. He's been really good in BR and stuff. He's kind of been locked there, but overall, I really enjoy the hard sinker, right? Outlier one on slurve, cutter, circle. Really good pitches right there. I guess I said that about Bob Gibson. I would probably add a cutter as one of my pitches for Bob too. But I think sinker, cutter, circle, and then slurve. Like those, like, mwah, I love it. The only thing this card is missing is maybe an outlier fastball. So one of the best pitch mixes. You can argue he is a little wild, which is true.
He definitely is.
Circle change is 53 control on that, but great movement on the sinker. The sinker just it's so wild how it darts when you're at the plate. You're like, whoa! I did not expect that to break that hard that late. And he's got a kind of funky motion, not insanely hard to pick up, but it's a little different than a lot of the guys you see, and it gets on you quick. That's my Dustin May thought process for why he's number 4 for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have him here shortly, but he's probably the only pitcher this year that I've lit up every pitcher at some point. However, he's the one who's the most consistently shut me down. And to be fair, the one time that I will say that I did light him up, I think it was because there's an idiot behind the controller and had no idea what sequence he was, just picking buttons and going. So that's probably why I hit him. But when somebody uses them effectively, tunneling sinkers, cutters, using the slurve to create the PCI to shrink, and it's a good pitch in the first place. When someone uses him correctly, I would think if he had better pitching clutch, I would put him at number 1. But his pitching clutch is kind of brutal.
Yeah, not great. Yeah, my analysis is based off like trying to hit against him, especially in that like charisma event when everybody was running him. It was some funky stuff. So yeah, that's a good point about the pitching clutch, which I had to touch on. All right, who's your number 3?
Number 3 for me is going to be Ohtani. Now, part of that is because of the glitch. So once he gets fixed, which I mean, because they know about it could be any day now if they figure it out. But I would still be using him in my top 5 even without the glitch, to be fair. I think this is probably one of the best Ohtani cards we've ever had, and I'm completely just talking about the pitching side, nothing about hitting. Best probably hit. Well, no, okay, he's had better cards with hits and Ks per 9 and stuff like that, but he's just more effective this year, and I can't really put my finger on as to why, right? To lefties, I love throwing the splitter in because, people will tell me it looks like a cutter and it's slower. And then I can run the cutter in on their hands while throwing an outlier fastball to keep them honest. So I could literally stay on one side of the plate to the pull side to a lefty before I even think about throwing anything away. A backdoor cutter, a backdoor slider, a splitter low and away. Throwing the four seam even high and away just to make you move your PCI in a different direction.
Changing the eye level is so important on batters.
Yeah, and I think, this year, for whatever reason, 4 of his pitches are very, very viable. Better than any other year. But his curveball, yeah, it's unfortunate, right? It's not a 12-6. It's not a slurve. I'll throw it to change the eye level. I'm spiking in the dirt just to make you think of something else. And if I get a check swing maybe on it from time to time, hopefully An umpire will call it once in a blue moon, but I fully
Yeah,
expect it's going to be a ball.
I feel like curveballs on 2 strikes are like the worst time to throw it. Curveballs are like, the foul ball bait. They're like check swing, hopefully get a strike. But like, I feel like it's hard to get a curveball to swing and to get somebody to swing and miss a curveball because there's nothing that really looks like it in the game. It's not really confusing.
Yeah, because it humps right out the gate. You
Stuff can
see it out of the
pop too.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Number 3 for me is somebody you went to. I went to Bob Feller. I mentioned if people want to hear my analysis on Bob Feller, go back to number 7 where we talked about Gunski. I love his pitch mix. A little bit wild. I absolutely agree. And I'm not going to repeat myself. All right, number 2 for you.
Number 2 is actually going to be Dustin May. As I said before, this is the card that pulls my pants down. I don't know how to approach him just yet.
He's your high school bully.
He is, and so the only reason why I put him at number 2 instead of 1, right, is just the pitching clutch. Because if I get runners on, and that's a big if, but if I get a couple hits and it's like, oh, now the PCI, I don't even have to know what's going on. I just need to sniff the region of where this pitch should be, and I'm gonna hit it hard. But again, the issue is getting runners on in the first place. So when nobody is on, I don't like facing him. Slurve's really good. He just has pretty much everything you would want. And you said you don't find him all that funky. Again, I haven't been able to pick him up. Again, kind of with Ohtani, I don't know exactly what it is that I'm struggling with him. But I don't read the ball out of his hand well. And it's not because he's a sidearm or anything like that. There's just something about either his release point or where it's getting thrown, where how some pitchers, it just warps out of their hand. I don't think that's what's happening, but again, I don't know. In theory, I've faced plenty of pitchers who have the same repertoire and have done damage to him. Bob Gibson, I've faced plenty of times, very similar, letting him up. Just not Dustin May, not Carrot Top.
Like I try to say, like he is funky, but I don't think he's like one of the insane funky guys that I've seen. But he is definitely got that funk, like you talk about. So, I may have misspoke. I think he's pretty funky, but not like who's the funkiest? Like Loop or like Under Submariners or like Danny Johnson last year was pretty funky and hard to see out the hand when they updated his motion. Those are like the funkiest, I would say.
Yeah, he's definitely. I would think of him close to a right-handed Randy. But I've also, anytime I faced Randy last year, I lit him up. But I could understand why, because of the arm slot, I just knew where I was looking. Again, I just haven't figured it out with Dustin May where I want to look, because I just feel like maybe it is warping out of his hand where I just don't get the right read off the rip. So that's why he's my number 2. If I can't hit you, shit, it's got to mean something.
I feel the same way. Like pitching with guys, you can learn a little bit about them, but playing against them is like a whole different level. You're like, oh my god, how do I read this? How do I hit this? How do I get my PCI in it? I agree. I feel like playing against them is a better read on how good the pitcher is than actually almost throwing with them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who's your number 1?
Number 1.
Number 2 is Bob Gibson.
Bob. All right.
Yeah. All right, who's your number 1?
Number 1 for me is going to be Roki Sasaki. I imagine that's probably your number 1 as well. Because for me, why I like Roki so much, he is my best actual pitcher. He has my best stats. Now again, I know how to. I don't hit him that well, but I hit him much better than I do Dustin May. But looking at it from my lens, I use him very well. He has my best pitching stats, and I just feel comfortable pitching with him at any moment, right? I got the slider and the sinker cutter for righties, and I also got the cutter sinker four seam for lefties. The fork ball I wish was slower, but there is in certain instances a beauty in it being hard. Just not, again, it would be way more effective if it were slower, but if somebody seems to always be on a four-seam sinker, the fork ball is my next go-to pitch that usually will throw them off. Throw it inside on their hands, and they'll just keep yanking it foul, so I get 2 free strikes, and I try and get something else to happen.
I guess it's the eternal debate. Like, do you want outlier on your fastball and sinker?
I would prefer it be on the four seam, and then the sinker is left at like 95 to 97. That's the perfect world scenario. Do I hate that it's on both? No, but it's not the preferred, so
Yeah.
it's still fine.
The sinker flattens out a little bit when it's got outlier.
I still feel like he's got good movement on it, at least from the times I've seen him. Definitely feels like it runs in on a right-hander's hands way better than most sinkers that I've seen. Like, it actually darts. It may not have the same like hump, but it has way more tail. If that makes sense.
Like what a two-seamer would do.
Yeah, if two-seamers worked in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, he's number one for me, obviously, too. I think he's got incredible pitches. Outlier on him. Cutter, forkball, slider. The beauty. Like, I would say, okay, what pitches do you not want to see in a, like, okay.
Curveball.
Yeah, not seeing a curveball. If I have pitches, leave me alone on the curveball. Nobody got like a running fastball in the game. I know that's coded in the game. It's not there. I'll take a sinker over a two-seamer. But like, I feel like, are there 7 good pitches that we want to see on a card?
Yeah, I will say this year though, because of at least for a slurve in years past, I thought it was a good pitch, but I would still not really like to see it. This year, because it shrinks the PCI as well, and at least Dustin May slurve, I'll tell you, is fucking nasty. I want to see a slurve now.
Okay, so maybe got 9. So like what? Sinker, forkball, splitter, slider, slurve, screwball, some sort of changeup, circle. I guess I did count forkball. I don't know. There's actually quite a few. Like, the only ones that like we don't like are curveballs and two-seamers. Everything else is okay.
Pretty much, and then at that point you start getting into the is it, how does that pitch play off of their four seam, or do they have outlier on a certain pitch, right? Then there's other things that it starts getting broken down into. But yeah, if I see a two-seamer, I've only probably ever used a card once where I believe that their two-seamer was different.
Who's that?
I'm trying to remember. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. It was a righty. I remember what it is. No, so last year with DeGrom, the same way we talk about having outlier on a four seam and not on a sinker, it was the same concept. If you had outlier on a four seam, but your two seam was 97 without outlier, facing good players, that two seam was devastating because it looks exactly the same, but now it's 4 or 5 miles per hour slower. And that's still being like, oh, well, we already know there's a difference between a 101 mile per hour fastball and a 101 mile per hour outlier fastball. So now taking it even a step further, instead of 4 or 5 miles per hour difference, it's really like 7-ish. So I made a pitch look exactly the same, but it's not.
Hang on. Say that again. An outlier at 101 is different than a four-seamer juiced up to 101.
At least in my experiences, I haven't done anything to test it, but I've heard plenty of other people agree with it. I haven't heard anybody disagree, but I think it would be something to slow down. To at least, if I say it, I don't feel stupid if somebody does and they're like, nothing changed. But even this year, right, I've faced Dustin May's 100, on his fastball will not blur me the same way Rocky's at 102 or 101 will, even though it's only 1 or 2 miles per hour faster. Rocky's four seam can blur me. And granted, it can get up to 104. I've seen it. But yeah, seeing a pitcher like, I bet you, Vita Blue, right? If his four seam's at 99, that should in theory mean it can get up to 101.
Yeah.
And it will at times. But that 101 ain't going to be the same as an outlier 101.
Huh. Weird. I never even recognized or noticed that. I'll have to look out for that going forward. It's a good observation. Maybe people in the comment section can let us know.
Yeah, and if you guys disagree, feel free to let me know. But I haven't come across anybody when I've said that has been like, nah, you're crazy. Other top players seem to think the same thing. But nobody's done, to be fair, any actual proof, right? To go, oh yeah, here's side by side, it left the pitcher's hand. And again, it also, I don't know exactly how you test that, because in order to do a true test, you need the same pitcher, right? And so do you get one where, okay, in Diamond Dynasty, it has outlier, and I finally got him to throw it at 101 miles per hour, and then I make the same exact card, or essentially it's the same everything, but I take it to franchise where he won't have outlier, and then test it there. I think that's the only way you could, in theory.
You'd have to keep the settings the same. You'd have to do them both in franchise with the same throw motion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you have to do. Do you believe like the height of cards matter? Like they release it closer to home plate or not?
Do I think they released it closer to home plate? Not necessarily, but I do think, when I see Lee Smith on the mound, it's like oh shit. Like Lee Smith's what, 6'7", and then what? Bautista's 6'8".
IRL, it's a big deal. You don't think it's a big deal in this game?
Other than an intimidation factor, not really. I mean, maybe the ball is coming out a little bit higher than normal, so it's funky-ish from that standpoint because they're taller. But I don't think they're releasing it.
You were a college pitcher. Didn't they tell you to try to get off the mound as far as possible?
Yes and no. Obviously, the exceptions that I can think of are like Jordan Walden, who there's another guy, I think Gerardo or something like that, are pitchers in the majors or were in the majors that they would essentially jump off the mound.
Yeah.
And they're now probably 5 to 6 feet away from the rubber, and they still haven't thrown the ball. Their foot's not on the rubber anymore, and they're still in a basically have gotten 5-6 feet off of, away from the mound. So they're probably now at like 55, 56 feet, and now they're finally releasing it. And it is basically, think of it like a double hop, right? Nobody else does it because that could also put insane stress on your arm. That is something to be concerned about. But Jordan Walden stands out to me because I'm like, not only did he essentially jump off the mound to do that, he also was throwing 100. And it's like, dude, and he was well over 6 foot. So he had everything going in that direction where it's like, I don't want to face you.
Yeah, that seems a little difficult to hit when they're releasing it so much closer to home plate at that kind of velocity. Hey, talk about velocity. What do you think about Rob Dibble's card this year?
I used him at the beginning. I think he, once he gets a better card, he's usable. Right now, though, with only 88 hits per 9, no.
And kind of wild, too.
Yeah, although to be fair, his cards always have bad control, like balls per 9 in the actual control rating, but it never plays that way. Right? There's always going to be cards where they have bad control, and you go, yeah, right. It doesn't play that way. And there's also cards that have what should be good control because it says they have good control and good balls per 9. And then it's like, well, they don't hit a spot to save their life. And the par regions are massive. So make it make sense.
That's something I've noticed. Yeah. Some guys just seem to have built-in, like, motion control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We should probably wrap it up. This has been going for a while.
Yeah, but, I mean... So if you guys are interested in the top 10 outfielders, I know we'll be doing that over on Gut Fox's channel. I'll also put his link in the description box and pin comment down below. If you guys ever have any questions, let me know in the comment section as well. But again, thank you guys, and also thank you to Gut Fox. Any parting words?
Dude, I feel like I'm worded out. Hour and 10-minute video or so, hour something. Like I'm gone. You sucked me dry, Gunski.
Mission accomplished. You guys have a good day.